Hello and welcome back. I'm Dr. Mark D. Baldwin, and today's lecture is on Thomas Paine. An Englishman who came to Philadelphia in 1774, Thomas Paine was one of the American Revolution's most valuable players. It could be argued that without his rhetorical skill and passionate persuasion, the colonists would never have been convinced to mount and join the revolution against England. His 1776 pamphlet, entitled Common Sense, sold 500,000 copies, a huge number at that time, and catalyzed the colonists to fight for their freedom from King George's despotic rule. Political pamphlets were the most persuasive, and influential form of writing at that time, and none of them matched the power and historically significant greatness of Common Sense. In it, Paine combined a righteous rhetoric that stressed his belief in a better future with the plain style of self-evident facts and common sense. In Common Sense, Paine masterfully reduces a complex issue to moral contrasts that require immediate choice: patriotism or treason, union or disintegration, history or chaos. Making use of nearly 100 biblical allusions, Paine weaves an intricate fabric of religious and political images. By outlining every vital aspect of the unfolding revolutionary experiment beforehand, including its continental scope, its republican nature, its representative form, and even its federal convention and written constitution, Paine constructs a virtually airtight and resoundingly convincing argument for the colonists to wage war for freedom. Okay, let's read a few passages together. I'll orient you as to where we are. We'll start by reading from page 706 to 709 in this slide. This is from the Norton Anthology, the 6th edition. These passages present the argument. So if you turn with me to page 706, the fourth paragraph, actually. The cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind. Many circumstances have and will arise which are not local but universal, and through which the principles of all lovers of mankind are affected, and in the event of which their affections are interested. The laying a country desolate with fire and sword, declaring war against the natural rights of all mankind, and extirpating the defenders thereof from the face of the earth is the concern of every man to whom nature hath given the power of feeling, of which class, regardless of party censure, is. All right, there it is. He says, this is historic. This is universal. This is global. This concerns human beings, not just us here and now, but everywhere. We got to draw the line, set a standard, create a precedent. Paine was aware, as were the rest of the Founding Fathers, of the historic significance of what they were about to do. Next paragraph. In the following pages I offer nothing more than simple facts, plain arguments, and common sense. Yes, that's true. The bottom of 706. Arms as a last resource decide the contest. The appeal was the choice of the king, and the continent has accepted the challenge. So there he says, we tried talking about it, we tried negotiating, but it didn't work. Now we have to fight. Second paragraph on 707, the sun never shined in a cause of greater worth. This paragraph recapitulates what he said in the fourth paragraph. Now he lays down the arguments. I'm skipping a lot, of course. Read the entire piece, obviously. I'm just trying to give you some of the highlights. At the very bottom of 707, the first argument against the revolution, he says, I have heard it asserted by some that America has flourished. I'm skipping the as there. The paragraph elaborates on that point, but essentially he explodes that argument by saying, no, we would have flourished a lot more if we had not been under the thumb of Great Britain. Top of page 708, the second argument, but she's protected us, say some. And he says, no, she hasn't. In fact, Great Britain has led us into all sorts of disputes with the rest of Europe. Third paragraph, third argument, it hath lately been asserted to Parliament that the colonies have no relation to each other. Well, obviously they do. as their sister colonies, he says, geographically. And the next paragraph is the fourth argument. But Britain is the parent country, say some. Then the more shame upon her conduct. Even brutes do not devour their young. Okay, so he explodes that idea as well. So he's laid out the argument nicely. And on page 709, he segues into the next part of his rhetorical case. On the 1-2-3 paragraph on 709, besides, what we have to do with setting the world at defiance. Our plan is commerce, and that well attended to will secure us the peace and friendship of all Europe, because it is in the interest of all Europe to have America a free port. Her trade will always be a protection, her barrenness of gold and silver secure her from invaders. He says, look, we're not looking for a fight. All we want to do is do business. I challenge the warmest advocate for reconciliation to show a single advantage that this continent can reap by being connected with Great Britain. It says there's no benefits and there are many problems. Turning to page 710 to 11, these passages now ratchet up the passion, firing up the emotions. At the top of page 710, second line, everything that is right or reasonable pleads for separation. The blood of the slain, the weeping voice of nature cries, 'tis time to part. Even the distance at which the Almighty hath placed England and America is a strong and natural proof that the authority of the one over the other was never the design of heaven. The time likewise at which the continent was discovered adds weight to the argument, and the manner in which it was peopled increases the force of it. So, geography, time, space, God's will is against this union. Third paragraph on 710. Though I would carefully avoid giving unnecessary offense, yet I am inclined to believe that all those who espouse the doctrine of reconciliation may be included within the following descriptions. Interested men, who are not to be trusted. Weak men, who cannot see. Prejudiced men who will not see, and a certain set of moderate men who think better of the European world than it deserves. And this last class, by an ill-judged deliberation, will be the cause of more calamities to this continent than all the other three. This is a very wise and forward-looking, historical, universal, timeless point that he has just made. Those who want reconciliation either have a vested interest in it, or they're weak, or they're prejudiced, or they're moderate. Real strong politicians, people with strong political viewpoints, principles, standards, despise moderates. Moderates are the worst, for moderates sit back on the sidelines, do very little, and cause more problems than all the others combined. At least that's the view of Thomas Paine. Many others currently hold that same view as well. The bottom of page 710, last paragraph, men of passive tempers look somewhat lightly over the offenses of Great Britain, and still hoping for the best are apt to call out, "Come, come, we shall be friends again for all this." But examine the passions and feelings of mankind. Bring the doctrine of reconciliation to the touchstone of nature, and then tell me whether you can hereafter love, honor, and faithfully serve the power that hath carried fire and sword into your land. If you cannot do all these, then you are only deceiving yourselves, and by your delay bringing ruin upon posterity. And a few lines farther down, the fiery, passionate rhetoric really gets ratcheted up. But if you say you can still pass the violations over, then I ask, hath your house been burnt? Has your property been destroyed before your face? Are your wife and children destitute of bed to lie on or bread to live on? Have you lost a parent or a child by their hands, and yourself the ruined and wretched survivor? If you have not, then are you not a judge of those who have? But if you have, and can still shake hands with the murderers, then are you unworthy the name of husband, father, friend, or lover? And whatever may be your rank or title in life, you have the heart of a coward, and the spirit of a sycophant. All right. Well, appeasement won't work, and those who are continually advocating appeasement have never learned the lessons of history. All right, if you turn to page 712 now, please. This last passage sums it all up in a fiery call to action that is historically aware of what it's doing. Second paragraph, page 712. Ye that tell us of harmony and reconciliation, can ye restore to us the time that is past? Can ye give to prostitution its former innocence? Neither can ye reconcile Britain and America. The last cord now is broken. The people of England are presenting addresses against us. There are injuries which nature cannot forgive. She would cease to be nature if she did. As well can the lover forgive the ravisher of his mistress as the continent forgive the murders of Britain. The Almighty hath implanted in us these unextinguishable feelings for good and wise purposes. They are the guardians of His image in our hearts. They distinguish us from the herd of common animals. The social compact would dissolve, and justice be extirpated from the earth, or have only a casual existence were we callous to the touches of affection. The robber and the murderer would often escape unpunished, did not the injuries which our tempers sustain provoke us into justice. O ye that love mankind, ye that dare oppose not only the tyranny but the tyrant, stand forth! Every spot of the old world is overrun with oppression. Freedom hath been hunted down round the globe. Asia and Africa have long expelled her. Europe regards her like a stranger, and England hath given her warning to depart. O receive the fugitive, and prepare in time an asylum for mankind. So there you have it. A writer, a rhetorician, a speaker, a citizen of the colonies, aware, self-aware, historically aware of the significance, the timeless universal significance of what he's saying and what the revolutionaries and the founding fathers are about to do. Paine knows in his heart of hearts, this is a moment in history unlike any other. Now let's turn to the American crisis. This was read to Washington's troops. It was something of a coach's locker room halftime speech to his team that's losing the championship game, if you will. Full of passion and energy, reminding them why they're fighting a war, the American crisis rallied them to victory. We're still on page 712. Let's read the first paragraph. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper place upon its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated. Britain, with an army to enforce her tyranny, has declared that she has a right not only to tax, but to bind us in all cases whatsoever, and if being bound in that manner is not slavery, then is there not such a thing as slavery upon earth? Even the expression is impious, for so unlimited a power can belong only to God. Skipping down to the second paragraph, you see that Paine and the other founding fathers and revolutionaries, the colonists, believe that God indeed is on their side. I have as little superstition in me as any man living, but my secret opinion has ever been and still is that God Almighty will not give up a people to military destruction or leave them unsupportedly to perish who have so earnestly and so repeatedly sought to avoid the calamities of war by every decent method which wisdom could invent. Neither have I so much of the infidel in me as to suppose that he has relinquished the government of the world and has given us up to the care of devils. As I do not, I cannot see on what grounds the King of Britain can look up to heaven for help against us. A common murderer, a highwayman, or a housebreaker has as good a pretense as he. Wow, that's some strong rhetoric, comparing the King of Britain to a highwayman or a housebreaker, and declaring that God is on the side of the colonists. Well, there's a profound question, ladies and gentlemen. Does God take sides? Which leads to another profound question. Does God, if in fact he has taken a side, intervene in the affairs of men? Now, if you turn to page 714, please, I just want to read a couple more passages. This first one establishes ethos, credibility, before shifting into explosive rhetoric that concludes the piece. Page 714, first paragraph, Paine says, "As I was with the troops at Fort Lee and marched with them to the edge of Pennsylvania, I am well acquainted with many circumstances which those who live at a distance know but little or nothing of." That's ethos. That's credibility of the author. He's not saying, I was on the sidelines, I don't know anything about it, I wasn't there. No, he was there. He was there. And that always helps for people to listen to you when you've been there in the trenches with them. Toward the bottom of page 714, he's talking about Howe, the British general, about 8 lines up. Howe, in my little opinion, committed a great error in generalship in not throwing a body of forces off from Staten Island through Amboy, by which means he might have seized all our stores at Brunswick and intercepted our march into Pennsylvania. But if we believe the power of hell to be limited, we must likewise believe that their agents are under some providential control. There's that theme again, that God's on our side and the Brits are the devils. Well, whether or not they were the devils is questionable, of course, but you want to fire up your troops, and no better way to fire up your troops than to set a war in the context of good versus evil. More of that. 715, the colonists who were loyal to Britain were called the Tories. And here's what Paine has to say about the Tories. First paragraph on 715, about 8 lines down in it, 10 lines down. "And what is a Tory? Good God, what is he? I should not be afraid to go with 100 Whigs against 1,000 Tories. Were they to attempt to get into arms, every Tory is a coward, for servile, slavish, self-interested fear is the foundation of Toryism, and a man under such influence, though he may be cruel, never can be brave." So that's our enemy. They're weak. They're cowards. Now let's skip ahead to the end. Page 718, please. About the last 12 lines or so on 718. "Once more, we are again collected and collecting. Our new army at both ends of the continent is recruiting fast, and we shall be able to open the next campaign with 60,000 men, well armed and clothed. This is our situation, and who may know it? By perseverance and fortitude, we have the prospect of a glorious issue. By cowardice and submission, the sad choice of a variety of evils. A ravaged country, a depopulated city, habitations without safety, and slavery without hope. Our homes turned into barracks and bawdy houses for Hessians, and a future race to provide for, whose fathers we shall doubt of. Look on this picture and weep over it. And if there yet remains one thoughtless wretch who believes it not, let him suffer it unlamented." All right, so that's the picture. That's what happens if you don't leave this locker room at halftime and get out on the field of battle and win the game. This is a fiery, passionate speech. Win the war, boys. We have no choice. We either win or it's the end of life as we know it for all of us and our families and our country. And when they did, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.